각 등을 각 ngal steuer aangeleidt. Terwijl kan de alle ngal los ngal. Oké, soms interesting, later started. Dat is een lastig aan. De luchtkracht als ze staat is trying to sign someone is hackers voor je. Dat een miller. Dat miller. Eerst wil je niet te zijn kijken hoe hackers voor je. I think so. But hey, wat wij nou? Anders zijn is.
Being away from my abusive dad made me think that my life would finally
this is a line. Okay. I thought it would be a boy.
become better, especially because my boyfriend was very loving and promised to help me with everything, including my financial problems.
Just
I was
good
finally
hands.
able to live a normal college life and even live it to the fullest. I was happy. I felt so lucky, so blessed, so privileged. But that didn't last for long. Not when I found out my BF was cheating on me. I got mad. I screamed. I broke things and left him for good.
Damn, kind of demon.
I got depressed for weeks, but I knew I needed to let it go and move on. I decided to start all over again and rely only on myself. And you know, life as a college student was not easy. And life as a struggling college student with an after-class office job in New York City was even harder. I worked the 4 to 11 shift at a big company office. It wasn't the best job.
Damn, that's pretty late. So to that, that's pretty late. Cool. Dan start to work, and then you need to see again. Damn.
The world, and it barely helped me pay my bills and college dues, but it was better than nothing. However, someone had the pleasure of making my and my coworker situation much harder. Everyone hated Amelia. She was a manager of my branch and a complete rich girl. She would strut around the office asking employees what they thought about the latest designer bag she had acquired. Always stayed
cash. $20,000, jeez, why? Why? That's a cash, why? Look at the cash, how much the cash is.
stating the off-the-roof price it entitled. She would laugh at those who could not afford lunch, while she
This kind of stuff as lines are a $20,000 cash. Oh,
ate expensive meals. She was a despicable human and an even worse manager. And that evening, she was approaching my desk specifically. "Good evening," I stated, not even turning to look at her. "Good evening. Just wanted to let you know that the pay raise you requested was declined." My eyes widened, and this time I did turn around to look at her. "Amelia, you control the pay raises. I need the money. I can barely make it to the end of the month," I said, my eyes pleading. "That is not my problem," she spat back. "The company can't afford to lose that much money." I saw red as she left. "The company can't afford it, or you refuse to get paid less in order to live in your Barbie dream house," I exclaimed and slumped back down in my chair. Tears started rolling down my cheeks. I was upset. I was furious. I looked at the time and realized that my shift was thankfully over. I grabbed my stuff and went home. Arriving home, I realized I didn't have anything to eat for dinner. I didn't have extra money either, so I decided to just go to sleep and start fresh the next morning.
What? Oh shit. Oh. Why don't you just forget yourself? That's what I'm wondering. You're looking at assholes. And guys, honestly, nothing for
I put
it.
on an old t-shirt and shorts and laid down in bed. I was so done with my life, so done with the struggle, so done with Amelia and her lack of consideration and empathy. I wished for once that she could feel exactly the way I felt, but I didn't have a lot of time to wish for anything else because soon enough, I fell sound asleep. Waking up, something already felt weird. I was covered in a feather duvet and surrounded by fluffy pillows, something that definitely did not belong in my usual bedroom. It didn't take me long to jump up from the comfortable bed to realize that I was not where I was supposed to be. The room was white and big, and it looked like it belonged to a millionaire. Big bed.
Remember, guys. A little story. A little story.
Enormous amount of space, and
Oh, damn.
probably an in-suite bathroom as well. I furrowed my eyebrows in confusion. What was I doing here and who did this room belong to? But I didn't have time to think
It's lost
because the
now.
alarm on my phone went off. However, it wasn't even my phone. It was an expensive phone, one of those I just knew I couldn't afford. I turned it off and sat for a minute to process. I had not drank because I couldn't afford to party.
Kidnapped.
I had not been kidnapped because
Oh.
I was very sure I wouldn't have been put in a room so nice. And I was not delirious either because everything felt very true around me. I stood up and inspected the room. There were no pictures,
Adrenaline. That's also not
no marked items, nothing that would give me clues to find out who the room, the phone, and everything that surrounded me belonged to. I walked out of the room in the outfit I was wearing. That was surprisingly the same scrawny t-shirt and shorts I usually wore to sleep. I was in a penthouse overlooking the Hudson River
Damn.
and with an outstanding view of the Statue of Liberty. I
Young
was
dude.
alone, and there was a silence that was almost deafening. Another voice spoke up, making me jump. It's 9:30. Time to go to work. It was a smart speaker. I looked at the clock on the wall. Indeed, it was 9:30, and I couldn't afford to miss a day of work. Whoever's house this was, she had the same work schedule as mine. I wondered what to do. I didn't know if I was supposed to go find out who had placed me in that room while I was asleep, if I was to go to my actual home and get some answers, or simply just go to work and not lose the amount of money I couldn't afford to lose for one day. I thought
Both?
maybe if I go to work, some people can clear up my doubts. Tell me who
Yeah.
this house belongs to. It sounded like a good idea. Since I did not have time to go home and get clothes, I would just take some clothes from the owner's closet. I needed to find out what was going on. I walked back into the room, hoping to find what to wear and hoping that something would fit. Her closet was very different from mine. A big white closet that
No shit, I think the whole apartment was just a lost.
displayed every designer brand you could think of, bags made of expensive materials, fur coats, and dresses that belonged to a runway show, jewelry displays that screamed diamonds are a
A $20,000 class.
girl's best friend and could leave a person blind with their shine. Objects I knew I would not be able to afford by myself. Business suits and heels caught my eye very quickly. Fortunately for me, whoever owned this house had the same work style as mine, meaning she possibly worked a similar job as me. It was curious the amount of small similarities we shared. Either way, I put on a dress and a pair of heels and walked out the door, ready, or so I
Nice.
thought, to take on Amelia and her snobbiness. Walking into work, I was surprised that no one had noticed the changes. I was wearing designer heels, and the dress I was wearing looked too nice to belong to me, which gave me a strange sense of confidence I had found myself lacking. I approached my desk to find someone already sitting there. To my dismay, it was Amelia. "Good morning, Amelia," I greeted her, and she looked up at me. Her face was red and puffy as if she had been crying. She did not even look up at me. "Good morning," she growled, focusing on her work again. "Why are you sitting at my desk?" I blurted out, and she looked at me with an incredulous face. Standing up, she crossed her arms in disgust. "Aren't you funny, making fun of your employees when you know your situation is so much better?" I looked at her in confusion. My eyes roamed her outfit. I recognized the cheap suit and the tattered kitten heels. My world froze for a moment, and a crazy thought popped into my head. What if Amelia and I had changed lives? It was insane and ridiculous, but there was no other possible answer. She was sitting at my desk, wearing my clothes, doing my work. Amelia, as a manager, was hated by everyone in my office.
Wait. I do can other stories like this. And I'm wondering how.
And now I
Jesus
felt
Christ.
hated. I thought of sharing my insanity, but Amelia was staring me down. She looked upset that she had lost her royal life, and for once I did not care. "I am sorry." Those were words no one ever heard Amelia say. "It was not my intention to make you feel that way." She rolled her eyes at me. "Whatever," she said, and sat down to continue working. I walked to what used to be Amelia.
So, seriously, her life as was the lange life and the lange so was it her life. Okay. Strange.
Amelia's office, now mine, and sat down on the comfy chair. A lot of thoughts ran through my mind, and I was very curious about what had happened between me and Amelia. Somehow I had stolen Amelia's
Alright.
life and had given her mine. I was now a high-class manager, and she was a
Yeah,
struggling
manager.
college student. How did things like that even happen? However, another train of thought rushed through me. I can use my new position to make things better. Change the story. Someone interrupted my train of thought. Philip, the assistant, came in. He was always fearful around Amelia. He was shaking and quiet as he entered the room. "Your coffee, miss," he said, setting the cup down on my desk. "Good morning, Philip. How are you today?" I beamed with joy. He looked at me, his eyes widening. "I am good, thank you, miss." He smiled and then left the room. My plan had to work. After work, I decided to
how that makes a difference in their life.
indulge in the
That's
richness of
really
Amelia's, or now my, life. I went back to her apartment and took a big bubble bath. Roaming through her fridge, I found an expensive bottle of champagne and an already made dinner. I looked into
$10,000 champagne. I think that's too much money.
her bank account and was shocked with the income Amelia had. I went window shopping.
Wait, 1 second.
Dinner. I looked into her bank account and was shocked with the income Amelia had.
37 million. I said to that girl, the company can't afford getting you a little more money.
I went
Serious.
window shopping with the strange feeling of knowing that I could buy anything I wanted. I had struggled
Like
with
that.
money most of my life, and being allowed to have some treats felt like heaven. I
That's
went
sweet.
back to sleep in the big duvet-clad,
Sounds
fluffy,
like
pillow-filled
that,
bed
yeah.
that night. As much as I loved Amelia's life, I knew that money came from hard work and that it does not buy happiness.
That's
However,
true.
Amelia did not know that. She was only a manager because her grandparents used to own the company, and all her money came from their wealth. In comparison, Amelia hadn't worked a day in her life. The
Okay.
next few days, I
That instance, if you work hard, then you deserve it. I feel like if you really hard, you deserve to be happy and allowed to.
worked on adjusting to my new life while trying to figure out why and how I was suddenly living in luxury. I also tried helping others and changed the atmosphere
How long has you been living her
in my
life?
office. I smiled and acknowledged my employees and their hard work. I gave people chances to
Good
work
job.
hard and grow in the business. I treated everyone with kindness. However, for some reason, Amelia's former behavior was not being forgotten by my coworkers. The luxury life became disgusting really soon, to my dismay. People started using me for money, asking me for favors, and talking behind my back. As good of a manager as I could try to be, the income I made was still envied, and everyone around me would just look at the money instead of my personality, with the remains
Yeah, that's also true. I feel lousy and rich and famous because don't really as a person that know as an object they can use. Other has 1 million followers, it has 10 million followers. Oh, I can use that. No. It doesn't work like that.
of Amelia's horrible disposition always lingering. That made me sour. To my horror, I realized I was turning into Amelia myself. I had tried to be kind and I had always been rejected. My behavior around people
That's made me realize she is like that. She tried to be nice to people and only those people use her. I think that's what happened.
soon became snappy and entitled. I was not able to ignore the horrible comments that were made about me. The amount of
Okay.
hatred was turning me into a distasteful, angry person, and Amelia's riches were not the answer. That wasn't myself, and I knew it, and I hated every single part of it. The big breaking point was one afternoon. Someone knocked on my office door. "Come in," I said, and Amelia walked in silence. Her head was down and she was shuffling her feet as if she was shy. She sat down in front of me. "How can I help you, Amelia?" I asked. She looked at me and a tear rolled down her face. "I need help," she said. "I am struggling. I can't pay my rent anymore. I'm about to get kicked out of my apartment and I can't adjust to this new life. I really can't." I nodded. "I don't really know how this happened, Amelia, but I know what you're going through. And instead of doing what you would have done in this case, I am going to do the opposite. I am going to promote you." Amelia's eyes widened and a smile glowed on her face. "You are?" she asked in disbelief.
sweet.
"Yes, but just because I understand what it's like to struggle, and I don't want that for you. I am showing you why kindness matters." "Thank you," she smiled. I could tell that she was really thinking about my words. She stood up and walked out. Even though everyone at the office still hated me, I was certain that helping Amelia was the right thing to do. Even with my newfound luxury, I would have never wished a constant struggle to anyone, not even Amelia. Amelia really improved with her promotion. She was able to pay rent and pay her college dues. She worked harder than ever before, and she
You mean your land and your college
became
listen.
extremely kind to everyone around her. She even saved enough money to treat herself to small luxuries like going on a holiday where she actually found love. In a way, I was jealous of her. Yes, she didn't have a big bank account, but people had actually grown to like her. She had a purpose and a life worth living, now filled with joy and happiness, much different than me. Months went by, slowly and painfully. The loneliness was killing me, and I was getting tired of the luxury life. I couldn't find a way out of it, or an answer to how I had stolen Amelia's life and given her mine. I grew more desperate with every day that passed. For once, I missed my normal, struggling life. It was cold one night, and the penthouse was even colder. I settled in between the duvet and the pillows, the only comforting and nice thing I could find about living in Amelia's shoes by then. I was exhausted and depressed, and all I wished was that I could go back to my normal life, even with its sad
I literally out the soon later. I literally got him then.
things. I woke up the next morning. Shock creeped on me when I realized I had woken up in my old apartment, wearing the same t-shirt and shorts I had changed lives with, lying in my old uncomfortable bed. It had all been a dream. I sat up. It was the same unsettling feeling I'd had when I found out I was living Amelia's life, but I smiled. I had missed my old life. I walked into work with a skip in my step. I was oddly happy to be back to being a struggling college student, and I was strangely looking forward to my previous job as an intern. My desk looked the same, and everyone around me looked like they had before. And to my surprise, no one hated me. Instead, they were happy to see me, which felt very strange but heartwarming at the same time. However, I knew every dream had to have a nightmare. I was called to Amelia's office. I walked to her office with this wrenching feeling that my newfound happiness was going to be cut off immediately, and knocked on the door. "Come in!" Amelia's voice was squeaky and entitled again, and I certainly did not like it. I walked in and sat in front of her. She breathed out, as if preparing to give an important speech. "I am going to promote you," she started. My world went blank for a few seconds. "I'm sorry?" I asked, not believing what I had just heard. A promotion would mean possibly solving a lot of my financial problems. "This is difficult and strange for me to admit," Amelia said, "but I think I know what you're going through." I tried to process what she was saying. It oddly reminded me of my dream. "I have to ask you something crazy, but you really need to listen," I said, and started telling her everything. About the dream, about how everything had been different. I asked her for kindness and told her that I knew that inside her was a girl who wasn't horrible and knew the value of hard work. Something in my story interested her because she listened all the way through without talking. I left her office with a signed promotion and a smile on my face. However, before leaving, I turned around to notice an upset expression, as if she was missing something. "Amelia," I asked, and she looked up at me with curious eyes. "Me and some girls are going to dinner after work on Friday. Maybe you can join. It's not going to be anything very expensive, probably a bottle of wine and Chinese takeaway while singing karaoke," I laughed, "but it's good fun." A surprising smile grew on her face, and she nodded. "Yeah, I think I will join," she said, and I saw her smile stay for a few seconds as I closed the door. I left her office 2 hours later, smiling, feeling positive I had gotten through to her, and indeed I had. Amelia started being kind to everyone, even me. She had come to the dinner, and she turned out to be more fun than everyone thought, loved Chinese takeaway, and just needed real friends who wouldn't care about money. She gave amazing opportunities, and my coworkers started looking up to her as an example. She even found love in a guy from my branch. She looked happy, as did everyone else. It was turning out to be like my wishes, and I was elated. As for me, I found myself in a home decor store. I looked around, thinking about how much money I had made with my new promotion. Enough to pay my bills and college debt. I decided to treat myself and bought a white, cozy duvet and a bunch of fluffy pillows.
That was sweet. That was really sweet. I'm not gonna lie. This was a story that I really liked. That's, I began really strange because I still don't know if it's a dream or it was real. I don't know. But I really like this one. It was a hard one and it was a happy ending so than goes because it's nice how you can help people. You don't need to be rich or you don't need to be this or that. You just need to be happy for yourself and happy to help others. That's what I think. But I really hope you like this episode. I think this is one of my favorite animated so far. Even though it was really strange, I still like it and I hope you guys like it too. If you wanna help me, don't forget to like the video because that's the only way I know that you like the video. antes qual, alle lasu erais, ang nga sa dilaw. Leia.